The Collector. In the small town of Ashton, known for its picturesque landscape and tight-knit community, people started to disappear without a trace. It began with an elderly woman named Mrs. Jenkins, who was well loved by everyone. She went missing one evening after leaving the local market, her groceries left scattered on the sidewalk. The townspeople were shocked, but as days turned into weeks, hope dwindled. Then, a young college student named Sarah vanished on her way home from a late-night study session. Her car was found abandoned on a desolate road, the door left wide open. The disappearances continued, each one more baffling than the last. The local police were baffled, finding no evidence to lead them to the missing individuals. Fear gripped the town, and whispers of a serial kidnapper spread like wildfire. Parents escorted their children everywhere, and once bustling streets turned eerily quiet after sundown. The town was on edge, but one teenager, Jack Peterson, couldn't ignore his curiosity. Jack was a bright, adventurous kid with a knack for solving puzzles. Determined to find out what was happening, he started his own investigation. Jack followed the scant clues that the police had dismissed, an odd pattern in the timing of the disappearances, and a strange symbol found near each victim's last known location. His investigation led him to an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town, a place long forgotten and rumored to be haunted. Undeterred, Jack decided to explore it one night. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of adventure, he entered the factory. The inside was a maze of rusty machinery and decaying walls. The smell of decay hit him immediately, making him gag. He stumbled upon a secret room filled with strange artifacts, personal belongings, photos and trinkets that each missing person had once owned. It was a chilling sight, a grim gallery of the vanished. Jack's heart raced as he realized he was onto something far more sinister than he had imagined. He found a hidden door leading to an underground dungeon. The air was damp and cold, and the walls were lined with crude iron bars. There he discovered the victims, barely alive, and in a state of shock, chained to the walls. They were weak, malnourished, but alive. The mastermind behind the disappearances was Walter Green, a reclusive and deranged former artist who believed he was creating a human gallery. Walter was convinced that by capturing and preserving people in their moments of fear, he could immortalize them as living sculptures. He saw himself as an artist, his victims as his masterpieces. Jack managed to call for help, and the police arrived in time to apprehend Walter. The survivors were rescued, but the trauma of Walter's gruesome art would haunt them forever. The town of Ashton struggled to move past the horror, but Jack's bravery became a beacon of hope. He was hailed as a hero, but the haunting memories of the Collector's gallery would remain etched in the town's history. The Midnight Caller. In the bustling city of New Orleans, known for its vibrant music scene and rich cultural history, a string of mysterious murders puzzled detectives. The victims, all young women, were found in their apartments with no signs of forced entry. Each crime scene had a chilling similarity: the phone off the hook and the faint sound of jazz music playing in the background. Detective Marcus Holt, a seasoned officer with a reputation for solving the toughest cases, was assigned to the investigation. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to find any leads. The city was on edge, especially the women who lived alone. The media dubbed the unknown killer the Midnight Caller, and the name stuck, adding to the fear that gripped New Orleans. Journalist Emily Carson, known for her sharp wit and fearless reporting, became intrigued by the case. She saw it as an opportunity to uncover a major story and began her own investigation. Emily discovered that all the victims had received a series of unsettling phone calls in the nights leading up to their deaths. The caller, speaking in a calm, eerie voice, would play old jazz records and whisper cryptic messages. Emily's research led her to a forgotten piece of New Orleans history. Decades ago, a jazz musician named Louis Dupre was accused of murdering his lover in a fit of jealousy. He was executed, but locals believed his vengeful spirit lingered, cursing anyone who heard his final haunting composition. Emily realized that the modern-day killer was mimicking Dupre's crimes, targeting women who resembled his lover. Emily's investigation put her in the crosshairs of the killer, who began calling her, taunting her with jazz tunes. The first call came late one night. As she sat in her dimly lit apartment, the phone rang. She picked it up, and a haunting jazz melody played, followed by a soft, menacing voice. "Do you enjoy the music, Emily?" the caller asked. "It's a tribute to a love that never dies." With the help of a tech-savvy friend, she traced the calls to an old, decrepit jazz club in the French Quarter, long abandoned but still echoing with the ghosts of its past. Emily, determined to confront the killer, ventured into the club. The inside was a time capsule of the past, with dusty tables and broken chairs scattered about. In the back, she found a room filled with old records, photographs, and a shrine dedicated to Louis Dupre. The killer, a deranged descendant of Dupre named Victor Dupre, believed he was avenging his ancestors' unjust execution. Victor, obsessed with his family's legacy, was convinced that by recreating the murders, he could bring Louis's spirit back and restore their name. He attacked Emily, but she managed to fend him off, using a broken chair leg to knock him unconscious. The police arrived just in time, apprehending Victor and rescuing Emily. Victor was charged with the murders, and the haunting legacy of the Midnight Caller was brought to an end. Emily's story on the case won her acclaim, but the eerie sound of jazz music would always remind her of the night she faced a true monster. The Silent Neighbor. In the quiet suburb of Maplewood, the Anderson family moved into a charming, old house. Their neighbor, Mr. Grady, was a reclusive man who rarely left his home. He was an elderly gentleman, always seen tending to his garden or sitting on his porch with a book. The Andersons found him peculiar but harmless, until strange things started happening. At night, the Andersons heard odd noises coming from Mr. Grady's house, muffled screams, frantic footsteps, and eerie silence. The noises always seemed to stop when someone went to investigate. When they questioned him, Mr. Grady brushed it off, attributing the sounds to his old, creaky house. He was polite but evasive, always finding an excuse to avoid further questions. One evening, young Timmy Anderson noticed a light flickering in Mr. Grady's basement. Curiosity got the better of him, and he peered through the window. What he saw made his blood run cold. Mr. Grady was standing over a terrified woman, bound and gagged. The woman's eyes were wide with fear, her muffled screams barely audible through the thick walls. Timmy ran back home, his heart pounding, and told his parents. They were skeptical at first, but Timmy's fear was genuine. Mr. Anderson decided to investigate further. He called the police, but they found nothing unusual when they visited Mr. Grady's house. Mr. Grady seemed perfectly normal, a kind old man with a tidy home. The police left, and the Andersons were left feeling embarrassed and frustrated. Determined to prove what he saw, Timmy sneaked into Mr. Grady's backyard one night. He found a hidden entrance to the basement and crept inside. The basement was a labyrinth of narrow hallways and small rooms, each one more sinister than the last. In one room, he found the woman he had seen before, along with several others, all in various states of distress. They were chained to the walls, their faces gaunt and eyes hollow. Timmy managed to free one of the captives, and they alerted the authorities again. This time the police conducted a thorough search, uncovering the horrifying truth. Mr. Grady had been kidnapping people for years, holding them captive in soundproof rooms beneath his house. He was a master of deception, blending into the community as a harmless old man, while committing unspeakable acts in secret. Mr. Grady was arrested, and his victims were freed. The Andersons were left to grapple with the knowledge that the quiet, friendly neighborhood they loved had harbored a sinister secret right next door. The town was shocked, and the story of the silent neighbor became a chilling reminder of the darkness that can hide behind a friendly face. The Disappearing Act. In the vibrant city of Las Vegas, magician David Holloway was known for his spectacular illusions. His most famous trick, the Vanishing Woman, involved making his assistant disappear in a flash of light. The act drew huge crowds, and David's fame skyrocketed. However, behind the scenes, something far more sinister was at play. David's assistants started to vanish off stage as well. Each one disappeared without a trace, leaving only a note resigning from the act. The police were unable to find any leads, and David continued his performances with new assistants, each one eventually disappearing. The disappearances were written off as runaway cases or career changes, but rumors began to spread among the local performers. Detective Sarah Blake, a fan of David's shows and a skilled investigator, was assigned to the case. She attended his performances, studying his tricks and movements. Sarah noticed that each disappearing assistant had expressed fear or discomfort before their final performance. She dug deeper, learning about David's obsession with perfecting the ultimate illusion. Her investigation led her to David's warehouse, where he stored his equipment. The warehouse was a sprawling complex filled with props, costumes, and various magical apparatus. It seemed innocent enough, but Sarah sensed something was off. She found hidden compartments in his props, leading to an underground tunnel system beneath the city. Sarah ventured into the tunnels, her flashlight casting eerie shadows on the damp stone walls. She uncovered a hidden chamber where David had been keeping his assistants. They were imprisoned in small, dark cells, malnourished and terrified. David, driven by a twisted desire for perfection, had been kidnapping his assistants and imprisoning them, convinced he could perfect the ultimate illusion by making them disappear forever. As Sarah gathered evidence, David caught her and attempted to add her to his collection. In a tense showdown, Sarah managed to outwit David, using his own tricks against him. She created a diversion, using a flash powder to temporarily blind him, and then overpowered him with a trick rope she found in his stash. Sarah freed the captives and brought David to justice, exposing his horrific crimes to the world. David was sentenced to life in prison, his career and reputation shattered. The story of the Disappearing Act became a chilling legend in Las Vegas, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind the glitz and glamour of show business. The Cult of Silence. In the remote town of Ravenswood, nestled deep in the forest, a series of ritualistic murders sent shockwaves through the community. The victims, all local teenagers, were found in the woods, their bodies arranged in grotesque patterns, with strange symbols carved into the trees around them. The townspeople whispered about an old legend of a secretive cult that once inhabited the area, performing dark rituals to summon otherworldly beings. The police were at a loss, the murders seemingly random and without motive. Reporter Jane Sullivan, known for her investigative prowess and fearless nature, arrived in Ravenswood to uncover the truth. She learned that the victims were all students at the local high school, and each had been involved in a secretive club. Jane infiltrated the club, posing as a substitute teacher, and discovered that it was a front for the resurrected cult, led by a charismatic and twisted history teacher named Mr. Whitaker. Mr. Whitaker, with his silver tongue and hypnotic charm, had convinced the students that they were chosen to participate in ancient rituals that would grant them power and protection. The students, eager for a sense of belonging and excited by the mystery, followed him blindly. Jane found evidence of the cult's activities, old books filled with dark incantations, ritualistic tools, and photographs of the victims. As she dug deeper, Jane realized that Mr. Whitaker believed he could gain immortality through the sacrifice of innocent souls. He had manipulated the students, promising them secrets and power, but in reality, he planned to use them as pawns in his own quest for eternal life. Jane gathered as much evidence as she could, but before she could alert the authorities, she was captured by the cult members. In a heart-pounding climax, Jane was brought to the center of the ritual, tied to an altar, with Mr. Whitaker ready to perform the final sacrifice. Using her quick thinking, Jane managed to free herself using a hidden pocket knife she had kept for emergencies. She fought off the cult members, using their own confusion and fear against them. As the police arrived, tipped off by Jane's earlier message, they apprehended Mr. Whitaker and the remaining cult members. The townspeople were horrified by the revelations, and the dark legacy of the Cult of Silence was brought to an end. Mr. Whitaker was sentenced to life in prison, and the town of Ravenswood began to heal. However, the chilling memories of the cult's reign of terror lingered, a testament to the evil that can hide behind ordinary faces and the power of manipulation. Jane's bravery and determination had saved the town, but the scars of the cult's dark rituals would remain forever etched in Ravenswood's history. If you have a true crime story you'd like featured on this channel, please email us.